My name is Amber, I'm 31 years old, and the phone rang at exactly 2 in the morning. Tomorrow you can join your brother's fiancé's family for dinner. But keep your mouth shut, my mother said. No greeting, no apology for the hour. I asked her why. Her dad's a decorated colonel. Don't embarrass us. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it, and said, got it. I had no idea that decorated colonel was about to stop mid-toast, set his glass down, walk straight toward me in front of 200 guests, and ask a question that would unravel everything my family thought they knew about me. If you truly love and appreciate your parents, take just 1 second to subscribe to this channel. It means a lot to us. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from? My brother Holden had been engaged for 3 months to a woman named Vivian, daughter of Colonel Bennett Whitfield, decorated, respected, the kind of man whose name alone straightened people's spines. I had never met him. I'd barely met Vivian, seeing her twice, both times under 20 minutes, both times with my mother hovering nearby like a stage manager, terrified I'd improvise a line that wasn't in the script. I wasn't offended by that. I was used to it. In my family, I'd long ago been cast as the unpredictable one. No husband, no corner office, no picture-perfect home to show off at holidays. Just me, my apartment, and a quiet job nobody at family dinners ever bothered asking about. The dinner was held at a private event space downtown, low gold lighting, a string quartet tucked in the corner. I arrived in a simple navy dress. My mother met me at the door with a practiced smile, looped her arm through mine, and murmured, "Smile. Say hello. Don't bring up anything from before." I nodded. The easiest way through the night was to disappear into the wallpaper and let Holden have his moment. Holden looked genuinely happy, happier than I'd seen him in years. Vivian was warmer than I expected, squeezing my hand and saying she'd heard so much about me, which I doubted. I made small talk, nodded along to stories about Holden's promotion, and drank exactly 1 glass of wine, because my mother's eyes kept finding mine across the room like a leash held from a distance. Then the toasts began. Holden's future father-in-law stood tall, his uniform jacket pressed sharp, medals lined in neat rows across his chest. He raised his glass, spoke about how proud he was, how impressed by Holden's character. The room leaned in, charmed, and then his eyes moved past Holden, past Vivian, past my mother's frozen smile, and landed directly on me. He stopped mid-sentence. Not a stumble. A full stop, the kind that makes a room shift in its chairs, without knowing why. He set his glass down and took 2 steps toward me while 200 eyes followed him like he was the only gravity in the building. "Hello," he said, voice low but carrying. "I'm surprised to see you here." He studied me the way you study something you're trying to place from a long time ago. Then, quieter, he asked, "Who are you to them?" The string quartet had stopped. Nobody had told them to. My mother's face went the color of the tablecloth. Holden looked between us like he was watching 2 unrelated movies get spliced together by mistake. I set my glass down. My hands were steadier than I expected. "I'm Amber," I said, "Holden's sister." It wasn't the answer he was asking for, and we both knew it. The corner of his mouth twitched, like a man enjoying a private joke he wasn't ready to share yet. And then he said the words that changed everything in that room. "Captain Amber Reyes," he said, slow and deliberate. A name I hadn't heard spoken at a family function in over 6 years. A rank my own mother had never once acknowledged existed. "Forward operations, 3 years ago. You briefed my unit before the extraction in the Eastern Corridor. You're the reason 11 of my men came home instead of 7. He said it plainly, without theater. The way men like him say things other people spend their whole lives trying to earn the right to say about themselves. My mother's napkin slid off her lap onto the floor. Nobody moved to pick it up. I hadn't planned on this room ever knowing. I'd left active duty 2 years earlier for reasons that were mine alone, taken a quiet civilian role nobody at family dinners ever bothered asking about, and let everyone keep believing the version of me that was easiest to dismiss. It wasn't shame. It was that explaining it to people who'd already decided who I was felt like throwing a stone into a lake that had already frozen over. My mother liked her narratives clean. The disappointing daughter, the risk she had to manage. Simpler than the truth, that I had spent years doing work she couldn't fathom, surrounded by men whose lives depended on decisions I made, under conditions she'd never have to imagine. "You told me to keep my mouth shut tonight," I said, turning to her, my voice calmer than I felt. So I did. Around us, relatives who'd spent the evening glancing past me like wallpaper were now staring with the kind of attention that comes from social recalculation, the rapid mental arithmetic of people realizing they'd misjudged where the power in the room actually sat. Vivian's hand went to her chest. Holden hadn't said a word, but his eyes had gone glassy, like 6 years of half-truths were rearranging themselves behind them all at once. The colonel turned to address the room, his voice carrying the same authority it had during the toast, except heavier now. I don't embarrass easily, he said. But I'll tell you what does embarrass me. Watching a family undervalue someone who's earned more respect in this room than half the medals on my chest. He looked at my mother when he said it, not unkindly, but without softening it either. My mother opened her mouth to respond, found nothing there, and closed it again. For the first time in my entire life, I watched her run out of a script. Holden found me afterward, near the quiet end of the room. He didn't apologize in big dramatic terms. He just stood there for a second, then asked quietly why I'd never told him. I told him the truth, that there hadn't seemed to be room for it, that the version of me everyone had agreed on didn't leave space for the real one to exist. He nodded slowly, the way people do when they're absorbing something they should have asked about years earlier, and said he was proud of me. The first time either of us had said those words between us and meant them. My mother found me near the coat check as I was leaving, her composure rebuilt but thinner now, like a wall patched in a hurry. She started to say something about how I should have told her, how she would have handled the dinner differently if she'd known. I just shook my head, because that was exactly the problem. My worth in her eyes had always depended on what I could offer to be seen, never on simply being her daughter. I didn't raise my voice. I just said goodnight and walked out into the cold air, feeling lighter than I had in years. The kind of light that comes from finally letting a room see you as you actually are instead of who you'd quietly agreed to pretend to be.